Hello and welcome to this episode of Microchips, and on the bench today we have one of my favourite all-time radios, the MARKO Excalibur MK-II Homebase radio, which I got supposedly working. Well, we'll see about that. But before we start, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, join Facebook, join Patreon, buy me a coffee, have a look on my website microchips.net where all my boards are. And let's get started, see if we can bring this old girl back to life. So, before I've even plugged it in, I'm going to have a look inside, make sure everything is as to be expected. And okay, seems we have a regulator on another heatsink there. Got a yellow wire flapping about in the breeze. Looks like it's been quite well lived in, this radio. But you know, it's nothing we can't sort out. So just having a look. Somebody's obviously replaced the meter bulbs. We're going to be doing something with that with LEDs anyway, so that's not a problem. So yeah, well, at least it's complete. Something to be thankful for. But yeah, I think this is going to be a big job. So, first thing I spotted was somebody's changed the output transistor to a 1307. Well, it should be a 1969 in there. And the crystal oscillator board is flapping about in the breeze. Let's have a look underneath, see if there's any horror stories underneath. And at least there's not 10 million cut tracks under there. So that's something to be thankful for. But we have some work gone on the power supply. We got the screws missing on the heat sinks for the outputs. We've got a pre-drive bias bodged there. But yeah, that's nothing that can't be sorted out. At least the PLL area is intact and, you know, not been hacked with an axe. Can't say the same about the power supply though. This looks like it's had a hard time. And a random bit of solder just in there because, you know, why wouldn't you have a spare piece of solder, you know, just so it can flap about and short. Well, at least it was stuck to the wire, so at least it couldn't go anywhere. Got the usual cut tracks on the front switches, that's fine. And we've got a plug that looks like it's older than time itself. Who remembers plugs without the protective shields on the positive and negative? And then we have a 13 amp nail inside there as well. So, who remembers how to put a plug on correctly these days? Well, there you go, we put a plug on. 3 amp fuse, nice modern plug. I feel a lot better having that on. I bet you a lot of the people these days wouldn't know how to put a plug on with them all being pre-moulded. So let's fire it up. So at least it comes on. Switches at least do something. Some of the lights do work, which is good. Some of the lights don't work. Then we have no TX, and when we do have TX we have a tiniest little bit. So I'm going to have to find out where it's transmitting. So it is trying to do something. So it's not a loose connection. So it is doing something, just not a lot. Not a lot of RF output at all. High and low power switch is working, so I don't think it's that. So having a look at this yellow wire that's flapping about in the breeze, that's the high and low band. So that's at least why one of the bands isn't working. So we do have transmission of some sort. We have low band at least, and then it just drops out and does nothing with a very pitiful RF output. As you can see, not a lot, but hey ho. And in a certain key combination or switch combination, we do get a little bit more power. And quickly go up to the frequency counter. And channel 1 mid-band, so it looks like it's tuned for that end. But it's really low, considering it should be. Yeah, but at least we're getting something. But for what I've got planned for this, we're not going to be needing that anyway. And just whilst I was looking, there's a nice external fuse wire being fitted across the fuse. Just, you know, for easy replacement. Should the fuse ever go. Nah, no problem with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to fit one of my digital DDS units to it, which is basically a replacement for this crystal unit. Makes it nice and stable. Plus we can program whatever crystals we want into it. And we know this board works very well on the 121 board, as we've seen with my TriStar 747. It works really well, so that's what we'll be doing with this radio. So we just need to start unhooking the wires. So we've got a dodgy switch here, so it must be a key combination, because originally these radios are only 80 channel and somebody's fitted an extra crystal in, so there must be a combination of those two switches that give you the low, mid and high. Now, as with all jumbos and radios of this kind, there is exposed live mains underneath and live switch on the side. And let's just admire how beautiful the back of this board is. Beautiful. But anyway, yeah, there's live mains, so I'm running this radio off my bench power supply, and we'll deal with the main power supply later. So I've replaced the board and connected the coaxial cable straight into the mixer. Basically just took it off the crystal board, and as you can see, we have now got all the different bands. Yep, so there's 5 bands on there. We've got 10 kc and 5 kc on it. So let's get the front off, because we need to get the front off, because we're going to be changing the switch, because obviously we need a rotary switch, so we're going to put that on the high and low power. So there's a high and low power, and we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to put a 4-way switch in. So we've got some of the connections already pre-wired. So we've got the 4 bands, and we've got the LSB wire connected as well for the LSB offset, which is the brown wire. And we're starting to get some form of RF output now. Now things are starting to work properly. But we still need to address this dodgy RF output stage with all its screws missing. And I think the best way to attack this is to take it all out and start afresh with it. Because if somebody's put a 1307 in the final output, who knows what is on the pre-drive. Now this should be a 2166 on the pre-drive. But we're just gonna go through this. We'll go through this area just to make sure that everything is indeed correct. So there's our first one, a 1307, which is incorrect. This just comes out, and look, there's our 1969. So the 1969 should be on the final output, and we should have a 2166 on the driver. So what we're going to do is we're going to put replacements in of those, and we'll pop these in the parts drawer for later on, because I'm sure they're still working. It's just a 1969 is not meant to be in that position. Maybe it was somebody's attempt to try and get more power out of this thing. So we've tidied it up, we've cleaned it with some alcohol, everything's looking a little bit more respectable. And we'll put the transistors in. We're just checking that we've got no shorts on the collectors or anything stupid like that. So everything seems fine up there. So we'll solder them in. Just like so. A nice new old stock 1969 there. I think this radio deserves to have the correct transistor fitted. We've also done the bias resistor as well. And we'll bring the bias up to 0.7 of a volt. So everything's correctly screwed into place. Everything's nice and secure now, as it should be. We've done the bias modification, we've done the resistors, new screws. Everything's looking good. Now next thing, as you can see, none of the lights on the top are working. Those 3 lights are dead. So these are just grain of wheat bulbs. Luckily I have some in a drawer, so we can replace those. Always handy to have these bulbs in stock, especially if you're repairing this type of radio, because you know these bulbs like to fail, especially after being in there nearly 40-50 years. You know, it's a long time, especially if they're getting moved around a little bit as well. You know, they are getting a bit fragile. But we'll put some new bulbs in. Just try and desolder these. It's hard work trying to get correct angle with the iron, but they come out eventually. Just like so. So we're just going to measure the bulbs. And this one looks like it's working, but it might be intermittent. But we're going to replace them anyway. Just try another one. Yep, that's open circuit. No problem. I don't know why the other one was showing as okay, but bizarre. That one's showing as working, but we'll change them anyway. So there's 3 bulbs in place. Just need soldering in. And behold, we have a receive light, we have an on-air light, and we have a modulation light. Much nicer. Maybe the other bulb wasn't working because one of these bulbs was out, who knows. And it's going to get a new VCO as well, so out with that green VCO. And we're going to be fitting one of my voltage feed VCOs, which provides a nice stable voltage for the VCO. And because we're fitting UK40 on this, we need to change the PLL codes, and my digital crystal unit does not do that because it is just emulating the crystals. So we do actually need to fit in a modification board to change the PLL codes so it displays UK40 correctly. So trying to get this PLL out. Of course, all Butterfingers here drops it. And there it is, PLL, just a standard PLL. So we've got one of my mini units, which is just going to be UK40. Now I did notice that the antenna relay was dirty as well, completely intermittent. So Steph over at haminternational.eu has kindly allowed me to make these in the UK. So if anybody wants one, get in touch. He's given me the production files so I can get them made. So thank you, Steph, big thanks for that. So this is a replacement for this dodgy relay where the contacts get dirty. So I did ask Steph if I could make one of my own before I did it, and without any question he gave me the production files and just said, make sure you mention me when you do them. So we do, and we have. So thank you again, Steph. So next thing, these LEDs, or these display lights, so they need to be sorted out. So one's got a bulb in it and I think the other one's an LED, but they're coming out, and we'll tidy that area up. So we've got some cob strip LEDs which make a nice uniform light across the back of the meter. We don't drive them on full power, just drive them on quarter of the power, and they look really nice when they're done. Almost as good as having a incandescent bulb. So if you do actually compare these against a incandescent bulb, they do look very similar, with a nice uniform light spread across the back of the meter. So the next thing we need to address is this power supply. Now this is where, yeah, I shouldn't have messed with this power supply. I should have just tore it all out. But I thought, you know, let's tidy this up, let's make it nice and original. And see what we can do with it. Now just bear in mind that I've been running this radio off my bench power supply and everything has been absolutely perfect. Running on the bench power supply, the radio sounds absolutely great, there's no issues. Until we get to this power supply. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and correctly mount the regulator transistor. Make it look a little bit neater. So yeah, I suppose it works, but it's a bit dodgy. So we've cleaned up the area with some alcohol, and as you can see, there's a pad missing. Pad missing just there. Okay, that's fine. We're going to be putting a wire across to it anyway. And now if there's ever a case of excessive use of heat transfer compound, I think this is it. So I spent the next hour or so making up a nice heatsink. And we got everything wired up nicely. I'd spent ages cutting the centre spline off the heatsink so we could get the nuts on. I think I did quite a nice job of that. Put a nice new grommet in there so we can feed the cables through. And now we're going to replace the fuse. Take out this, this replaceable fuse, and we'll put a proper replaceable fuse in its place. So I found some fuse holder inserts and we'll put those in. So I'll fired the power supply up and, you know, thought I'd just monitor the output voltage, and straight away switched it on. It was up at 14.5. I thought, okay, that's a little bit high, but leaving it switched on, it starts to peak up to 15 volts. So it's a wonder this radio ever worked. So looking at the schematic, there's not really much to it. I checked most of the components, and RV1 was not adjusting the voltage, which it should do. And then we find this. So I can't get a reading off one of the junctions on this transistor. So I think there's our problem. So we'll connect it in circuit, see if we can read it in circuit. And yeah, it's reading it as a diode junction. Okay. Well, let's get that changed. So I'll put it on a load bulb this time. And as you can see, we can now adjust the voltage correctly. So we'll set it to 13.8 volts. And we'll connect it back up to the radio. And this is where things started going strange, because when I transmitted, the transmit power was all over the place and sideband sounded absolutely horrendous. Now before this moment I'd been running it on my bench supply, and this is the first time I've run the radio on its own internal supply. So put the scope on the output as you're transmitting, and yeah, I've seen more regulation in a used tea bag. So what I should have done to start off with is tear out this power supply and fit a switch mode in, because this power supply is bad, and that regulator transistor gets stinking hot very quickly. It's got poor regulation, it's causing the power to go up and down, and yeah. So I suppose we're going to have to get medieval on it. So in with the wire cutters, and let's start snipping it away. And all my hard work in fitting the new transistor, yeah, but never mind, you live and learn. So we've done a crisp peel on it, we've just snipped all the wires without any without any care given. And there's our board, and it finally wants to let go. It won't let go, so I just cut it. So all my hard work on that regulator board, never mind, we'll fit a better one anyway. So transformer out, that's taken like a kilo off the weight. So there's our new wiring, all nice and tidy. And what we've done is we've fitted one of these DIN rail mountable power supplies in from Weidmuller. So it's a 4 amp supply, it's industrial grade, and it's adjustable, so this will do nicely. I didn't have any other power supplies in at the time, this was the only one I had. So as you can see, we have a nice steady output. It's not up and down like it was before. That'll do nicely. So we've tidied up all the wiring, excessive use of cable ties, make it all look nice and neat, and I think we've actually done a good job on this. So now we'll just do quick final alignment. So 10692, 10695, 10240, and then we'll check the output. Now the crystal board can actually set the offset correctly for the UK, but we do need the UK channels, so that's why there's a PLL board in there as well. So we'll just check the usual sensitivity. No cyanide readings today, sorry. And we've done all the usual mods. And what we've done is we've added some white letter print for low, mid, high, and 5kc and 10kc. It doesn't look too bad, to be honest. So yeah, there we have it. So this radio is now working beautifully and goes along with my jumbo quite nicely. I don't think I've got any shelf space spare for any more of these. I had to make a new shelf for this one. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, join Facebook, join Patreon, buy me a coffee, have a look at my website, microchips.net. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.